Right now, we're talking to Dr. Robert Malone, and I want to play this audio of the bioethicist for you, Doctor, so you can hear what he's talking about, inserting and making us repel meat. Listen to this.
So I'll give two examples. So one is that people eat too much meat, right? And if they were to cut down on their consumption on meat, then it would actually really help the planet. But people are not willing to give up meat. Yeah, some people will be willing to, but other people, they may be willing to, but they have a weakness of will. They say, wow, this steak is just too juicy. I can't do it. I'm one of those, by the way. So, so here's the thought, right? So it turns out that we know a lot about, we have these intolerance to, for example, I have milk intolerance. And some people are intolerant to crayfish. So possibly we can use human engineering to make it the case that we're intolerant to certain kinds of meat, to certain kinds of bovine proteins. And there's actually analogs of this in life. There's this thing called the Lone Star tick, where if it bites you, you'll become allergic to meat. I can sort of describe the mechanism. So that's something that we can do through human engineering. We can kind of possibly address really big world problems through human engineering.
Shouldn't that be terrifying?
Okay, that's a mic drop moment. Yeah, that's clearly crossing the line. Engineering humans is the key. You didn't mention that part before. So he's talking about engineering you and me, not engineering the cow. That's way over the top. I was going to say, well, I think the core of what you're talking about is, does the rights of the society trump the rights of the individual, right? Do the ends justify the means? And we already settled that. We had the Nuremberg trials, right? We said no. And here in the States, and I think all of your listeners are aligned with me on this, we're a free society of free people that have free will to make their own decisions. And I hope that the speaker was saying this in jest, just to illustrate a point, because the idea of engineering humans, number one, it's naive. As somebody who's been in the gene therapy space for a long time, we can talk about these fancy ideas, but implementing them turns out to be wicked hard, for the very reason we started talking about, that there are all kinds of barriers to getting stuff into our DNA. It's hard to do.
What concerns me is it feels like some scientists are now like, yeah, eugenics didn't work, but the idea was good. And we're just going down the same road with new technology from 1900 to 1940.
Yeah, no, and I suspect this is always going to be the case. I can tell you that among my peers, there are always those who feel like if we can do it, we should do it. And it's often real hard to check those people. I mean, this is the same kind of issue as the gain of function mutation research that's at the core of the controversy about the origin of this virus. There are people in my space, in my contact list, that are kind of wired to say, I'm really smart, and if I can do this, I should be allowed to do it. And those people are really hard to control, but they're out there, and they will always be out there. And somehow the rest of us got to put a clamp on them and make it clear that that's not okay. But it's not easy to do, I guarantee.
It's not easy to do, and it feels like medicine in some way is going off the rails. I know the AMA just said that they're going to start now including critical race theory in medicine. And I thought, that critical race theory, like it, don't like it, that's political. We cannot put political into medicine.
So, yeah, the assumption that the American Medical Association represents most physicians in the United States is false. Not only by numbers, but also by logic. So please don't paint us all with that brush. Just because a bunch of folks sitting in a ivory tower in Chicago happen to say that. A lot of us find the AMA has led us down the garden path to where our lives are controlled by accountants and people with MBAs.
Right.
They kind of sold us out. So I don't know that medicine. You're right. Medicine today is not what I signed up for when I went into medical school, and a lot of my colleagues are really disillusioned with it. But that's a bigger problem.
We're facing. These are the kind of things that keep me up at night. We're facing times that are coming at us so fast, and it doesn't seem like. For instance, I have a daughter who has cerebral palsy, and she had horrible seizures. She was having them all the time, and she just had this miraculous brain surgery. She hasn't had a seizure since January. She's 31 or 32 years old. That is a miracle. And I know that Elon Musk is developing what's called Neuralink, and his idea is that you'll be able to, if you have strokes, which she had, it will be able to jump over any of the scarring or anything else. And I think this is fantastic, but I also see what it could become, and I don't know where the line is. Is anybody talking about these things?
You're right to be wary, because the history is that when every one of these breakthroughs always comes with a good side and a bad side, and there's
Correct.
always military applications. There's always these kinds of control applications, and there's always folks that are willing to exploit it, particularly if they can make a buck. And this is the battle that we are going to have to wage forever.
But is there anybody in your business leading that battle?
That's a good question. Is there? There must be institutes and think tanks that are. I can't imagine there isn't. But the field of bioethics seems to be often fairly focused on just the pragmatic parts of how do we do a clinical trial and develop drugs and stuff like that, and not on these big picture issues. These are more psychology and sociology kind of, and big think tank, Rand Institute kind of questions you're asking. And I hope that there are folks out there, but they're not in my world. My world, people tend to be pretty focused on the mission, and how do we protect the warfighter? How do we respond to bio threats? I mean, the thing that has my world spooked is these new recombinant technologies like CRISPR-Cas9 and garage biology. You can engineer some wicked, nasty stuff these days in your garage, and that's in a way that you didn't used to be able to. And that's what's got.
Could you explain?
Pretty smooth.
Most people don't even know what CRISPR is. Can you explain that quickly?
Not very well. I don't know it. I don't practice it. It's a new technology that allows very precise recombination, which is to say insertion of new genetic material in place of existing genetic material, and it makes it kind of child's play. It used to be really hard, and now by use of these sequences that are found in some prokaryotic microbial systems, you're able to circumvent a lot of the old kind of more kludgy stuff and just make genetic swaps wherever you want. And that's complemented by the fact that you can, I could write out a new gene that I want right now on my computer and send it off to a shop in the US or China, and they would send me back a package with that gene synthesized. It's that trivial. And this is a technology that now allows you to take that and drop it into, your favorite genome. It's not yet so efficient that the problem with all of this for humans, for big, animals, to get it into all of your cells, we're not there yet. We're a long, long way from that. But to do it in one cell, or modify a virus or modify a bacteria, that's now trivial. And
wow.
That argument, we can't. It changes everything because you can't track stuff in the same way, and it becomes pretty easy to do stuff. So that's a little spooky. right?
Yeah, we're entering a whole new world, just a whole new world. Dr. Robert Malone, thank you for spending the time over the last 3 days being on in the
My
program.
pleasure.